Okay, in the book club that I'm in, we're reading something called The Paris Wife, and it's about the romantic 1920s in Paris mainly. Ernest Hemmingway, and it's told from the viewpoint of his wife and their poet or artist friends, including Ezra Pound, and a lot of famous poets and writers and things. So it makes the book very interesting. And it's written by Paula McLain, and she seems rather bright. I haven't read anything from her yet, but the Amazon review says most of us know or think we know who Hemingway was, a brilliant writer full of macho swagger, driven to take on huge feats of bravery and a pitcher or two of martinis before lunch. But beneath this man or myth or some combination of the two is another Hemingway, one we've never seen before. Hadley Richardson, Hemingway's first wife, is the perfect person to reveal him to us and also to immerse us in the incredibly exciting and volatile world of jazz-age Paris. The idea to write in Hadley's voice came to me, this according to Paula McLain, as I was reading Hemingway's memoir, A Movable Feast, about his early years in Paris. In the final pages he writes of Hadley, quote, "I wished I had died before I ever loved anyone but her." That line and his portrayal of their marriage, so tender and poignant and steeped in regret, she says, inspired her to search out biographies of Hadley, then to research their brief and intense courtship and letters. They wrote hundreds and hundreds of pages, delicious pages to one another, apparently. She said, "I could not help but fall in love with Hadley, and through her eyes with the young Hemingway. He was just 20 when they met, handsome and magnetic, passionate, sensitive, full of dreams. I was surprised at how much I liked and admired him. Before I knew it, I was entirely swept away by their gripping love story." She says, "I hope you will be as captivated by this remarkable couple as I am, and by the fascinating world of Paris in the 20s, the fast-living, ardent, and tremendously driven lost generation." So one gets the sense of this, I guess, this sort of this Jack Kerouac underground culture, artistic rebellion, liberal. These lives that they led were these idealistic lives, these striving for art and beauty and poetry, and within their groups that they hung out with. So that's what interests me the most is their friendships together and their tragedies and their triumphs. Ernest Hemingway lived from 1899 to 1961. He took his own life about 10 days before my brother was born, July 2nd of 1961. But his life was fascinating. He was an American author and journalist. His economical, this is according to Wikipedia, his economical and understated style had a strong influence on 20th century fiction, while his life of adventure and his public image influenced later generations. Hemingway produced most of his work between the 20s and the mid-50s, and as you remember, he won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1954. He published 7 novels, 6 short story collections, and 2 non-fiction works. 3 novels, 4 collections of short stories, and 3 non-fiction works were published posthumously. Many of these are considered classics of American literature. Hemingway was raised in Oak Park, Illinois. After high school, he reported for a few months for the Kansas City Star before leaving for the Italian front to enlist with World War I and the ambulance drivers. In 1918, he was seriously wounded, returned home. His wartime experience formed the basis for his novel A Farewell to Arms. In 1922, he married Hadley Richardson, the main character of the Paris Wife. The couple moved to Paris, where he worked as a foreign correspondent, fell under the influence of the modernist writers and artists of the 1920s, lost generation. So, and then The Sun Also Rises, Hemingway's first novel, was published in 1926. After his 1927 divorce from Hadley Richardson, Hemingway married Pauline Pfeiffer. They divorced after he returned from the Spanish Civil War, where he had been a journalist, after which he wrote For Whom the Bell Tolls. Martha Gellhorn became his third wife in 1940. They separated when he met Mary Welsh in London during World War II. He was present at the Normandy landings and the liberation of Paris. Shortly after the publication of The Old Man and the Sea in 1952, Hemingway went to a safari to Africa, where he was almost killed in 2 successive plane crashes that left him in pain or ill health for much of the rest of his life. Hemingway had permanent residences in Florida, Cuba, during the 30s and 40s. In 1959, he moved from Cuba to Ketchum, Idaho, and he did take his own life in the summer of 1961. Ernest Hemingway was born in 1899. His father, Clarence Hemingway, was a physician, and his mother, Grace, was a musician. Physician and a musician sounds interesting, that's what my family background is. My dad is a physician, and my mother is definitely a musician. Let's see. So then Wiki talks about about his life. Very interesting guy, though. If you want to, if you're a student, to write a book report on Hemingway would be a lot of fun. The tragedy and the triumphs of Ernest Hemingway. Tragically, he did take his own life in 1961, probably in so much pain with what he was going through. And Hemingway continued to rework the material that would be published as a movable feast to the end of the 50s. In the summer of '59, he visited Spain to research a series of bullfighting articles commissioned by Life magazine. Returning to Cuba in January of '60 to work on the manuscript, Life only wanted 10,000 words, but the manuscript grew out of control. For the first time in his life, unable to organize his writing, he asked A.E. Hocher to travel to Cuba to help out. Hocher helped him trim the Life piece to 40,000 words, and Scribner agreed to a full-length book version of almost 130,000 words. Hocher found Hemingway to be unusually hesitant, disorganized, and confused, and he was suffering badly from failing eyesight. July of 1960, Hemingway and Mary left Cuba, never to return. Hemingway then traveled alone to Spain to be photographed for the cover of the current Life magazine piece. A few days later, he was reported in the news to be seriously ill on the verge of dying, which panicked Mary until she received a cable from him telling her, false reports en route to Madrid, love, Papa. So, yeah, tragic end to his life, and he was in a lot of pain and depressive states, apparently. And during his final years, according to the encyclopedia here, Hemingway's behavior was similar to his father's before he himself committed suicide. His father may have had the genetic disease hemochromatosis, in which the inability to metabolize iron culminates in mental and physical deterioration. Medical records made available in 1991 confirm Hemingway's hemochromatosis had been diagnosed in early '61. His sister Ursula and his brother Leicester also committed suicide. So tragic. You got to wonder if just a question to throw out there, whether modern day psychiatry could have saved him. Added to Hemingway's physical ailments was the additional problem he had been a heavy drinker for most of his life. So you've got to wonder, the deterioration not only on the liver but the brain cells and the general, shall we say, the equilibrium of the body. I think we take that for granted. We can pour chemicals into our bodies, and then we are totally ignorant to this complex and sacred environment, our internal environment, our body. I'm not talking about the external environment. I'm talking about our body's sensitive environment with all the complex changes in equilibrium that's necessary. Drinking kind of takes that off a little bit. So Hemingway had been a drinker, so he had deteriorated his own body for quite some time. Hemingway's family and friends flew to Ketchum for the funeral, which was officiated by a local Catholic priest who believed the death was accidental. And then in a press interview 5 years later, Mary Hemingway admitted her husband had committed suicide. So The New York Times wrote in 1926 of Hemingway's first novel, "No amount of analysis can convey the quality of The Sun Also Rises. It is a truly gripping story, told in the lean, hard, athletic narrative prose that puts more literary English to shame." So there it is, one of the greatest writers, and that's why the book we're reading, The Paris Wife, is so interesting. If you have a chance to read it, it's certainly an interesting author, and she took a lot of time, and she was almost had an obsession with Hemingway for a while. It's called The Paris Wife by Paula McLain, and I'll have a complete review a little later on my YouTube channel. Have a great day. Oh, by the way, there's a debate tonight between Joe Biden and Paul Ryan, the Ryan-Biden debate, and you know, I expect that Biden will come out shining in this one. I don't think that Paul Ryan is as intelligent as a lot of people say. So he's organized, he's a good businessman, very flashy, wears good suits, no hair out of place. But Biden is by far intellectually superior. Okay, have a good day.